right, into the next section, which is I'm going to talk about specifically translating your brand. Obviously, I've kind of laid out that groundwork here. But I need to make it clear that translating the brand assumes that you have a brand. It's just an extension of marketing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here that I'm not going to cover today, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we have to have our customer orientation, we have to do research, we have to listen to our customers, we have to be in touch with our customers more now than ever in the past. We have to have a clear brand promise that helps guide our marketing initiative, and we have to be good at delivering on that experience. And what we're going to talk about today is here, which is all in a global context. So what I'm talking about is I'm shorthanding all of this front part of the marketing, and I'm just going to the global context part. Here's a traditional method of international marketing. We've got our own market here. We take our product and we send it out to these markets around the world. And this works and is appropriate for certain kinds of brands. For example, champagne. Champagne, if you're someone who likes champagne and appreciates that, you know that champagne comes from the Champagne region of France. It's an export product, and that's what you buy. You're buying something from the Champagne region of France. If you buy sparkling wine that uses the method champenois and you buy it, it's made in California, it's exactly the same, but they can't call it champagne because it's not from there. So there's a brand they have established as a region and enshrined in law that they're going to take this product and the ethos and the culture and everything about that region of France is part of the export. And for that product, this is an appropriate method of marketing. You're exporting something that's local and regional. What do we have here in Utah that we export like that? Pardon? Anyone have an idea of what do we market? What do we market like champagne? Tourism, okay. All right. National parks. Exactly. That's one of the things that was on my list. Was the national parks. Arches National Park. That arch is all over the world. People may not even know it's connected to Utah, but that is an iconic image that is pervasive and is out there. And so when people say, I want to go there, and they start looking, it ends up being Utah. So we are exporting our national parks. So tourism. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Wasatch beer.
Wasatch beer. How far does it go?
Wasatch Mountains.
So they export from downtown to Logan. Well, see the local microbrewery thing is a phenomenon. So that's a little bit of a different pattern, where you have this phenomenon that's happening everywhere. It's all about taking in that local flavor. But I'm not sure. There are rare examples maybe where that gets exported as far and wide as champagne does. Julian.
Sorry, the church.
The church. That's a very interesting comment. I didn't prime him.
He didn't. He didn't.
I didn't prime him, but I believe that is one of our major exports as far as brand goes. Worldwide, LDS Faith, Salt Lake City. There's really a strong emotional connection, branded connection. There's a magazine called ID Magazine. It's about all kinds of design, and they had an award a few years ago of the top 40 companies in the world or in the United States who are best at branding. So the top 40 best branders, and they included the LDS Church in their list as one of the top 40 most effective at using branding principles in marketing. You had another comment?
I had several products that I think get exported out, although I don't know if people know they're in Utah. Kodiak pancakes, the Honeyville line, the Stevens chocolate, and fry sauce.
So those get exported, but maybe on a different model. So that's interesting, because that's going to take us into the next phase. There are things like, we export a lot of medical products, but do people really connect that with Utah and the location? Different kind of a way of thinking, not necessarily this way, not the same as champagne. We also export brine shrimp. That's one of our big exports, as I understand. And that's on the commodity market. Copper. Nobody has any idea that comes necessarily from Utah.
High School Musical.
High School Musical? Does that come from here?
Yes, of course.
All right, I didn't know that. Well, very good. All right, so this is a valid way of marketing, but I think also we kind of fall into a trap with it. And that is that when we do this export marketing, we do what we know how to do. So we're thinking about the champagne model, we're thinking about the Stevens chocolates, we're thinking about all these things, and we think, okay, we're here, we're selling to there. But really what happens is that we end up having a wall, we've kind of got a wall around us, so we don't really see out very well, and then we perceive a wall around each of the places where we're sending it, so we don't see in very well. So what we do is we create things here and we send them there without really understanding that connection. This is the definition of the word foreign. Does that make sense? If you're marketing from the mindset of selling to a foreign market, then this is what you're doing. Foreign, the definition of foreign is, I don't understand that. It's foreign, it's different, it's not me, it's out there. It's something that I don't really understand, it's foreign to me. And so if you're selling to foreign markets, then you're losing out on an opportunity. And there are some, with the champagne, is what you want to do. That you want to understand them. I think the previous one didn't have the barriers, but I think that there's a better way, and that's where we're going to go next. I've developed this model called the Global Zoom, and my recommendation for how one should approach global marketing in the global marketplace, whether it's Stevens chocolates, or whether it's sanitation products, or whether it's instruments, saxophones and trumpets and things like that. With some things, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. It's a product on the market, and you need to have a strong brand. If it makes sense to attach that brand to a location, fine. If it doesn't, then this is the way to approach it. It's more like if I'm shooting pictures with a camera. I have my lens, and I want to take a long lens, I want to see out there, I put the lens on, I take it off, I put a wide angle lens, now I can take different kinds of pictures. This is the way marketing, I think, is generally done. What needs to happen is you need to have a zoom lens. You need to have the capability of zooming in to the local market and zooming out to the global market on an as-needed basis. As I've worked with many companies over the years, from American Express to, I've seen it with Novell, I've seen it with many, many companies. I was at the Association of National Advertisers, which is all the Fortune 500 companies, and I made a presentation to them, and I asked this question. I said, with you here, how many of you have experienced this pattern? You have a vice president, your marketing is focused in the local marketplace. One of the patterns is that you put all the marketing out. I'm going to go back to this one. Say, okay, we've got, I don't know about those markets. I'm just going to let those markets deal with the marketing. So we've got one central budget, but the decisions are made in market. So that's good because it gives good local adaptation. But what tends to happen there is that what's produced here and here and here is different. And so you have no consistency. The biggest example I know of this where it went awry is Yoplait. Yoplait allowed things to develop with their brand in different marketplaces. And so in one marketplace, it's very youthful, it has nothing to do with health, it's kind of cartoony, it's a child's food, kind of like a treat. It's not for adults, it's for children. But in the United States, it was more of a health food, it was more of a adult food. And then as the global marketplace things tend to spread, and they start to want to do things more centralized, it doesn't work because you've got deeply ingrained perceptions of what this product is in two different places. You can't bring them together without huge expense and a problem. And so you have to think about how this is going to work. If you allow things to develop, that's an extreme example. With American Express, as I began working with them in 1994, I began working in the area of travelers cheques, acceptance marketing. So what we did is we would teach merchants how to accept a traveler's check. We were working on the consumer experience side, not the sales side so much, but teaching. So we wanted the experience of cashing the traveler's check to be the same everywhere in the world. And so when we started, they had this model where they had decisions being made everywhere around the world. Mexico, Germany would do a great job. They did brilliant work. Japan, brilliant work. But in India, the quality wasn't so good and completely different. And you bring all those things together, and the materials were different, the instructions were different, the look and feel was different. And so here's the pattern. I'm going back to my story with the Association of National Advertisers. It swings. It starts on this side, and about every 4 years, the pendulum swings to the other side. You've got a new vice president starts, says, I'm in charge now, we're going to make some differences here. That model is too expensive. We're spending a lot of money duplicating our efforts, having the same thing done in market by market by market. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it all centrally. We're going to control everything from here. We're going to save a lot of money. Do they save a lot of money? Yes. What do they lose? The opportunity, the knowledge of the local market, the adaptation, because everything's the same, so advertising goes out that doesn't necessarily work in those different places. 4 years later, pattern happens again. New vice president, I'm going to make a difference here. Oh my gosh, we are completely not addressing the needs of these markets. We're not adapting. We're going to send the work back out to the local markets, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. So if you take that and put it together into a zoom lens and you build a structure where you have a single decision maker at the global level. This is what we built at American Express. They hired a gentleman, his name was Keith Merrick. They based him in London, and they assigned him to be responsible for acceptance marketing worldwide. And then he had regional people that were responsible for regions: North America, Europe, Middle East and Africa, JPAA, with Japan, Asia region, etc. And then they worked with the locals down at the individual country level. So they had this structure of communication. And this gentleman from London made a lot of effort going out and building relationships with everyone around the world. And this allowed him to have a discussion on a case-by-case basis to say, here's the project. Is it better to standardize this one and save money, or is this one that needs to go down at the local level? And they could have that discussion, and as our agency, we actually created all these materials for both the global and the local. And here are some examples. So at the global level, we zoomed out. Here's an example of a project we did to educate merchants about how to accept traveler's checks. Here's what the traveler's check looks like. The process is that you watch the person sign and you compare to the original signature. If the signatures match, accept the check. All kinds of problems. People have all kinds of rules and things. We just wanted to make it simple. So we created this campaign with the global market in mind. And it went to 140 markets worldwide. It was produced in between 25 and 30 different language versions. This is the Hong Kong version that's both in traditional Chinese and English with Taiwan and Hong Kong telephone numbers. We've got some different versions here for Korea and I can't remember which ones, Portugal. This one is the Korea one over here. This is UK. And so it's very standardized. The amount of change between one to the other is essentially the language has changed. Right from the beginning, it was designed so that it would work everywhere. We designed it, tested it, sent it out to the markets. Does this work? Got the feedback, said, okay, great. And then we just rolled out all the different language versions. Very, very efficient. Did some printing here in Salt Lake City with Lorraine Press and ganged them all up on, the sheets of paper together. And during the month when we shipped one of these projects out, we were the 3rd largest international shipper in the Utah-Idaho region for UPS. Just for that 1 month. And then we went back down to number 852. So, so very centralized, very, very efficient, very cost-effective. Great benefits from this because when you have a traveler's check and you travel to a country, you want the same experience no matter where you go. You've got people coming from all different places. You want to standardize that experience so it makes sense. The product is the same, it makes sense. So this is the right thing to do. Here's some others. This is the announcement of the South African Rand Traveler's Check. And so because it's a Rand Traveler's Check, we gave it an African feel. And years after this piece went out, we got feedback from the bankers in South Africa, and they just felt like it was brilliant. It worked really well. From Linden, Utah, we designed this piece that went to, in this case, 30 different markets. It was probably 8 to 10 different languages. But it really, we were worried that the animal skins would kind of be politically incorrect. We checked with some South Africans, not a problem. You know what I mean? So really, there has to be a dialogue. There has to be. They loved it. They felt like it really represented their language, their culture, and what they were exporting, because that's what we were trying to do. This is a piece. It's the wallet that the traveler's checks actually go in, and so this came from the process of the wallets were generally generic, didn't have any information on them, but they were having trouble educating the consumer about what to expect. So there's, and then we started moving into managing expectations for the consumer about what's going to happen. And then language became a problem. They had a lawsuit where somebody did something with traveler's checks, and American Express said, we're not going to compensate you for that because it's listed in our terms and conditions. And he said, I couldn't read it. It was in English. I'm speaking this language. So we developed a series of wallets that would go to different regions that would be multilingual. In this case, it was Arabic and English. And the thing I love about the Arabic and English and adapting, translating your brand for a global market is that English reads left to right and Arabic reads right to left. And so for both audiences, nobody is second. If this were French, somebody's going to be second. Who's going to be first, the English or the French? Oh my gosh, this is a problem. Send it to France, it's got to be French first, English second, you know what I mean? But that's going to be used in other places. So with most languages, there was a first and a second, but with the Arabic, it was nice because they were both first. And then in here in the middle, you can see that we put the Arabic first. But so this went out in various different languages and was used in lots of markets worldwide. And there are now updated versions of this. This is where the 200 countries come from, because we developed the wallets. The newest version of the wallets that went out actually went, how many countries are there in the world? Anyone know? Huh? 240. I got 240 here. I need another bid.
FedEx says 231.
You say 231? Okay, guess. These are guesses. It's in the range between 160 and 200. Because it depends on, and is that country independent, or are they a sovereign district of somebody else? And so in the range of 160 to 200 countries per se. And so to get to 200 markets, 215 markets is where this went to. We're talking Cameroon, we're talking pretty much everywhere that these wallets were distributed to. So zooming into the local. This is a piece for the American Express gift card. It's the little gold gift card, and they were launched in the United States and they were launched in Japan. And so very, very different markets. This is on a global basis, something that was done specifically for one market. In Japan, when you give a gift, it's got to be fancy. Culturally, they're very astute to design, and they use a lot of paper to wrap things. So there are layers, and when you open things, you open it, and you open another layer, and you open another layer, and there are beautiful papers that are wrapping it. And so this box we created for that market, and so there's a box, and then inside of the box is a little seated place for the card. These are actually two different ones. This is one that has an envelope and then a card inside, and the box had a couple of layers inside that works for that market. So again, adapting the brand, adapting the experience, but this was all reporting to one vice president based in London, talking to the local markets, finding out what needed to be done. We didn't travel there, just sharing information through the pipeline of that up and down zoom lens model from a management standpoint, and getting the information and putting the pieces out. Here are some more pieces created specifically around the traveler's checks. This is a part of the launch for the Euro currency traveler's check back in about 1999. And this is a kind of, for Europe, a multilingual market. So this is maybe zoomed part way out, not all the way to the local market, because we're thinking about Europe as a whole. And we're thinking this has to be a little bit more visual, a little less text. The visual of the lock would kind of convey the idea of security, regardless of if someone, is in a German airport and they speak Portuguese, and they may not read the German. So we're trying to show the product, convey the idea of security. This would be easily translated for the different places that it could be around the world, and would work well for that European market. Here, this is for merchants in the United States, and was placed in a magazine that went out to merchants. And this won an award without our even applying for it. This magazine did a reader survey about memorability of advertising. And this placed in the top 10% of ads that readers remembered after several months had gone by in reading the magazine. So this one was also done in Spanish for Latin America. And the truth is that people with traveler's checks actually do spend 43% more. So we're trying to educate the merchants as to why they should care about accepting traveler's checks.